Hello and welcome to another one of our COVID specials. I'm Jerry Rose, and I just want to say that I hope the programs continue to be an encouragement to you, and I also want to say thank you for taking time to join us today. And for more information on these specials, just go to tln.com or tlnwest.tv, and you can get more information on when you can watch the specials or view them online. Today, we have a really special guest, and I'm honored that he would take time in what I know is an incredibly busy schedule right about now. Dennis Prager is a best-selling author, a nationally known syndicated radio talk show host, and the co-founder of the educational media site PragerU. Dennis, welcome, and thanks for taking time to join me today.
I wish I could join you today. Obviously, we're joined via Zoom, but I truly think it's awful that I cannot be in the same studio with you. But
well, you know, that's
you'll ask me about that, and I'm sort of jumping the gun here.
Well, hopefully there's going to be a time that we can actually get back in studios together. But you know, the nice thing about this is that I can interview you where you are, and it's much more difficult to get you in a studio. So this is working pretty well for us. So
that's true. It's got its advantages, no question.
Yeah. Let's get right into it. And I just like your take on the COVID-19 situation. I keep up with your information both on television as well as in the educational site, but particularly the lockdown. Has this been a colossal national and international mistake? And if so, why do you think so?
To the great derision of many in the media and on social sites, I wrote a few weeks ago that it was probably the greatest mistake, worldwide mistake in history. I am more convinced of it than ever. It has produced more evil than good. I use these words extremely carefully. The suffering in the world as a result of the lockdown and the gigantic, enormous falsehood, not even perpetrated by people wanting to lie. Conservatives do this as much as people on the left. They say because of the coronavirus, X, Y, and Z have happened. That's all false. It's because of the lockdowns that X, Y, and Z have happened. And X, Y, and Z include hundreds of millions of people in this world who are on the brink of starvation solely because of the lockdowns. And of course, in the United States, what it includes is a staggering amount of excess suffering. I believe that we may end up with as many lost lives because of the lockdown as because of the virus. I was just reading about the staggering increase in alcohol and drug use as a result of this. Not to mention suicides, not to mention broken families, not to mention broken marriages, not to mention despair, depression, and vast increase in antidepressants. All because of the lockdown.
I think then the next question would be why? Why did the world, as a matter of fact, the United States and also the world,
right,
go to such extremes on COVID-19 when every year we have had hundreds of thousands more who have been infected and who have died from influenza? Was it because we didn't have a cure for it, or why?
Well, your question is the $64,000 question. I have some answers. I just want to make your question even sharper. Let's compare it to 1969, when 100,000 Americans, 1 million in the world, died of what was called the Hong Kong flu. That was when hundreds of thousands of young people went to Woodstock in the middle. Talk about social distancing. The social distancing at Woodstock was 4 inches, often no inches. Why? And by the way, that's 100,000 Americans dead in a much smaller population than today. So it could be 150,000 equivalent to today. Well, there are a number of answers to that, in no order of importance, because they're all sort of tied for first. One is the 24/7 media panics people. We are actually stupider as a result of 24/7 news. We are certainly less wise, and wisdom is much more important than smart or knowledgeable. So the ability to panic people is much greater. Number two, we have created a scared world population. There is, I hope people will look at my column. You can go to DennisPrager.com, Town Hall, Real Clear Politics. It's all over the internet about the word safe. This is a new word. I remember my dad, may he rest in peace, died at 96, World War II, 3 years in the Pacific. The idea that you would have told his generation, gee, you know, it's not safe. Nobody thought, is it safe? If it's not safe, you don't go to war. You don't lead, and even in peacetime, you don't lead a full life. Safe is not the only criterion in life, but it has become. I am convinced it's related to secularism. The more secular a society, the more scared its inhabitants. Why do people, and I'm a Jew telling you this, and I, with such admiration, look at the Christians who wanted to go to church on Easter and couldn't even sit in their cars? By the way, the association of liberty and religion has never been made as clear in my lifetime as it has now, because it's disproportionately religious people. See the Orthodox Jews in Brooklyn who have so much, and New Jersey, who, you know, de Blasio keeps singling out these Orthodox Jews. And of course, all the politicians singling out evangelical Christians. Isn't that interesting? These people, and they want to live just as much as secular people want to live, but they also believe, wait a minute, life is not to be led by fear. There are other considerations in life. So the panic, the news, the scared society, and one more thing, forgive me, I'll be much briefer in future answers, but you asked an enormous question. We have, I've written, I'm in volume 3 of my Bible commentary called the Rational Bible. And to me, everything boils down in many ways to false gods. What we worship when we stop worshiping God. One of them is science. I have no problem with science, but I have a huge problem with scientists. People think scientists are pure. Scientists run the gamut of moron to intelligent in no different proportion than taxi drivers, plumbers, or lawyers.
But one of the things, especially you were talking about the evangelicals, especially within the evangelical movement, the idea of not going to church. You know, there are ways we can do that. Our church has been meeting online, and now our church is meeting in gatherings again. But, you know, taking responsible means to, you know, protect the membership. But the unfairness of it was what I think has been a major concern to Christians. In Chicago, for example, they were actually, I was reading, they were actually blocking the parking lots, and they're serving citations to people who are going to church, which is a constitutional issue, number one, but also they didn't block the parking lots of some of your big box stores, Home Depot, Walmart, and the others. And if you go to those parking lots are pretty full. In cases of essential and non-essential, when churches were considered non-essential, and yet liquor stores and cannabis stores were considered essential, that raises a serious problem within the Christian community as to what's going on here. Is there a bias against the church that worship is not considered essential in a times of a crisis? How do you respond to that?
Democratic Party doesn't consider evangelicals not essential. They consider evangelicals useless and disruptive. The beauty of America is, to a certain extent, we still have free speech. So I will say An evangelical who votes for the Democrats is a fool. A Jew who votes for Democrats is a fool. It doesn't matter to me what religion you are. The contempt of the left for religion comes from Marx, and it has not stopped. And the reason they have contempt for a religion, especially Christianity, Judaism they have contempt for, but it's too small to bother them. So it's basically Christianity. And the reason for the contempt is, since Marx, they understood if people are religious, they will not buy the agenda of disruption and revolution that the left wishes to sell to every society. The only organized opposition to the left, not liberals, I always distinguish between liberals and left, but the Democratic Party has been taken over by the left. It's no longer liberal. The only organized opposition is Christian opposition. There are Jews who oppose, there are atheists who oppose, secular, but the only organized large number opposition is the church. And I include in that, whatever people's theology, doesn't bother me for this matter. It includes Catholics, it includes evangelicals, it includes Mormons, that they are a nuisance. They are the last remaining barrier. The people who got together at a church on Easter said, the left is not important to us, God is. That bugs them.
With that in mind, are we headed into a situation where the Bible could be considered hate speech?
We've already entered it. If I, as a religious Jew, you as a religious Christian, we believe that marriage, God's design for marriage is male-female. This is zero hatred towards gays. My wife and I are godparents to a gay couple's children. If that gay couple dies, they want us to be the moral instructors of their children, and they know we are opposed to same-sex marriage. These are wonderful human beings. It has nothing to do, the left makes it out into hatred because they're filled with hatred and they project it on to the people that they hate. We don't hate gays. God forbid one should hate a gay. In fact, I would say it's a sin. However, we believe in standards. We believe that there is an ideal. And so that today is considered hate speech.
From what we're seeing from the left Democrats, and as you said, and I agree 100%, that the Democratic Party is really controlled today by the left. From what we're seeing, if they would win the next election, or if they won the House and the Senate, would we be that far from a totalitarian state?
Not that we would be much closer. I won't say we would not be yet at a totalitarian state. However, I have said my whole life, and I've studied the left since I was at Columbia University, School of International Affairs. They have institutes. I was at the Russian Institute precisely to study communism and read Pravda every day in Russian. So my background, ironically and wonderfully, is steeped in the study of the left. I've studied the left, and I've studied the Bible probably in equal measure in my entire life. And every leftist is a totalitarian. Not every liberal. Liberals hated totalitarianism, but liberals are weak. So they don't oppose. There are a few liberals who oppose the left. Alan Dershowitz, Dave Rubin. There are a few, but they're very rare, unfortunately, because they're not strong. But every leftist, whether they admit it or not, is irrelevant to me. They are all totalitarians. If they could, they would suppress all of us who differ with them, and they try. YouTube now takes down videos of doctors who argue against the lockdown, of doctors who argue for hydroxychloroquine and zinc as helpful in the early stages of combating COVID-19. They take them down. This is what they would all do. They would take us all down. I'm in talk radio. They have tried for years with the so-called fairness doctrine to get rid of talk radio. If you do not agree with the left, they do not differ with you, they try to shut you down.
You've written that you believe we're becoming closer to than ever, actually, to being a police state. Is this part of what you're saying right now? And
I live in California. It is a police state. It's not a. They're not dragging people to concentration camps. There are varying degrees of police states. But if you give someone a haircut, you will never be able to do it again. They will take your license away. You can't practice a haircutting if your license is removed. The government controls who gives haircuts. We have ceded this control to the government in the name of safety because these people use chemicals and scissors. Maybe that is right, maybe that is not right. But remember, when you make a pact with the devil, you pay. The more government control there is, the more they are able of controlling us. I mean, it's definitional. And yes, it is. People are arrested for playing with their kids on a beach. Did you ever imagine this would happen in America?
But Dennis, what they would say is that, look, this is not the norm. This is an unusual situation. We have to take these kind of measures to protect the people. You said it earlier, to be safe. But who was it that said, never let a crisis go to waste? Is that what's happening here? That this could be at least the beginning of more of this type of activity?
Well, the first time is the toughest. We have broken the barrier to a police state in America. It's like you can't go back to being a virgin. We have lost our virginity. And this is a terrible moment in American history. I am personally not optimistic. That doesn't, by the way, have any impact on my desire to fight. Too many people have died for the freedom of this country for me to give up in the comfort of my home. I'm not being asked to storm Normandy Beach or Iwo Jima. I'm just asked to fight. Most people don't fight. Good people are divided into three groups: those who fight, those who help the fighters, and those who do nothing. Most are in the third group. I'm in the first group. So, but I will tell you that there's no question this is only a precedent. What if there's a second wave in the fall? Why will there not be another end to economic life, which is not just economic life? It is meaningful life. It is for human beings. Remember, the vast majority of people pushing for a lockdown have their salaries. The governors of these states, these Democratic governors, haven't lost a penny. It's the people who have lost their incomes that suffer. In the name of this abstract principle, it's abstract. We have lost people to these flus all through history without doing anything like this. And here's another one. The left believes that there's a much worse crisis to human life than COVID-19. Global warming. They say it's an existential threat to life, meaning the existence of human life is threatened. Well, if they could shut down the economy for a virus, they could certainly shut down the economy for an existential threat to life.
Well, that was part of the reason for my question about when the gates opened. The new Green Deal really has some pretty extreme measures in it that would have a huge impact on the citizens of the United States.
Yeah, our being in total sync. People should look up. Your many viewers should look up on the internet. I have an article from years ago, How the Left Keeps Me Religious, because it's true. If the anti-religious, the godless and anti-religious, the Bible-less, produce such terrible results so consistently, that is the biggest argument for God and the Bible that I can give people. Look at what happens when you get rid of them. It is pure. They've destroyed the universities, the high schools. They take 5-year-olds to, what is it called again? Drag Queen Story Hour. Did you know that?
Yeah.
5-year-olds. Do you know that a man called my show, said, I took my 5-year-old daughter to the drag queen story hour at the local public library. Dennis, what's wrong with that? These are not even bad people that are wrecking the country. They don't get up in the morning and say, how can I do bad? But they are.
Well, in Austin, the Austin Public School District and the Board of Directors voted unanimously for a very explicit sex education program. And they did that when, if I understand it correctly, 90% of the parents have said that they were concerned with it and they didn't want it, and yet it's being forced on the students in Austin, Texas. Another example. Let me go back to something here that I think is important. We have a crisis. We have the COVID-19 crisis. How would you have handled it in terms of the restrictions or in terms of protections of the citizenry?
I understood, because I don't know enough science. So I understood the first week or two. I, however, wrote from the beginning. I write a column every week. From the very beginning, I asked the question, is the cure worse than the disease? And I turned out to be right. It brings me no satisfaction. Sort of feel like Jeremiah. He turned out to be right, but he saw the destruction of the Jewish kingdom. I mean, he saw what happened. I'm not happy that I was right, but I saw this from the beginning. Wait a minute. You are going to quarantine healthy people? This has never happened before, even just on a science basis. Also, my trust in scientists is equivalent to my trust in lawyers. We make lawyer jokes, but we don't make scientist jokes. Scientists,
I think we will after this.
I hope we do. I hope we do. Scientists are the high priests of the religion of scientism. Anyone with a rational brain believes whatever science proves to be true. I don't know any religious person who denies gravity. This is an absurdity. There's no conflict between religion and science. There's a conflict between those who make science a religion and those who do not. And it has become a religion, and scientists are the high priests. So maybe we'll start telling epidemiologist jokes. These people are panic striking, and we should dismiss most of what they say a priori. It's all models. It's all based on models. One model said, 2 million people will die, and then Boris Johnson closed down the United Kingdom. I have a feeling he regrets he did, but I don't know him. Maybe he's proud of ruining the British economy. And by the way, that guy's a conservative. Panic has struck everyone, but it's not struck them equally. Republican governors disproportionately have opened their states. Democratic governors have disproportionately made a police state.
Well, California, for example, has said with pretty much certainty that they're going to extend the stay-at-home order all the way into August. And yet their economy is, their debt right now could put them close to collapse. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, we know what's going to happen. They're going to announce that the federal government is cheating them of the funds that they need. So California can run a reckless economy, do the most morally and rationally indefensible act of ruining its economy, and the people of Nebraska and Oklahoma and Texas should pay for it. That's the left's view. We will screw up our country, and you will pay for it. Why do people die? I'm sorry?
Isn't that also what's being said in Illinois and in New York? The
Of course.
same type of thing?
Yes, Illinois, New Jersey, New York, California. Yes, of course. Wherever there's a Democratic, Oregon, Washington, if there's a Democrat running the state, they blame the federal government. They blame whatever state opened up for not paying for their recklessness.
But Dennis, there has to be at some point, there has to be a tipping point in the economy when we have spent enough that the recovery is going to be incredibly difficult, and there will be a point that the recovery will not be possible. How far do you believe we are from that?
I don't know. I'm not good at prophecy, but
Would you agree that we could be close to a tipping point on this?
well, the question really is: are we in the first depression since the 1930s? Completely man-made, completely, and they will not be held responsible. This fool who runs New York State, whom the left adores because he's glib. They don't. So fools love glib fools. This man, first of all, is directly responsible for the death of many old people whom he forced into nursing homes. It's an astonishing story. My credibility is online. I'll announce it if what I just said is not accurate. He was asked about it, and he flim-flammed some sort of answer. He said, though, in the beginning, I play it on my radio show constantly. In closing down New York State, he said, if that saves one life, I will go to bed happy. I will be happy. Really, as I pointed out 100 times, every time we raise the speed limit, we kill thousands of Americans. We shouldn't raise the speed limit. If the criterion for public policy is now, will it kill any American? There are a lot of things we can't do. We should take people out of cars. The moment we allow people to drive, we allow tens of thousands of deaths.
What do you think it's going to take, Dennis, to turn it around?
An utter repudiation of the left, contempt for the left, and a defeat of the Democratic Party. That is the only way to turn it around. There is no other. People have to take their kids out of schools. They have to stop. They have to stop sending their kids to colleges that make them stupid. If they have to study STEM, science, technology, engineering, or math, there's no choice. Otherwise, I'm telling you, you can get a free education at Prager U that beats your liberal arts education at Princeton.
Dennis, thank you for taking time. I could have a lot more questions. I could go for another hour. We'll do this.
Do it again. It's a
We'll
joy to
do
be
it at another time. Thank you for joining me. I deeply appreciate it. And thank all of you for joining me. I also appreciate you being here.